So this session is how to attract and retain the right workforce. As I mentioned, for those of you who weren't in the room before, there's been a lot of discussion already around personnel, skills, costs, availability, the like. And I was just making the comment that having just come back from 5 weeks in Australia, believe it or not, exactly the same conversation is taking place there. So we tend to take the view that this is all a UK opportunity and issue, but I just, as I say, chuck that comment in. And so Philip, I'm going to hand over to you off to work. I've got a great panel signed up for you. But we're fairly relaxed about time. In theory, we're scheduled to finish at 5 to 1, but 1 o'clock's fine. So we'll see how the conversation goes, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Not sure if the audience will agree with lunch next. Yeah, absolutely. So today we're discussing how to recruit and keep the best workforce. It does seem to be the main topic of conversation. And my erstwhile panel to my left, Diane.
Hi, everybody. I'm Diane. I have worked in this industry. I've done 7 major events, so spanning over the last 12 years or so in workforce management, and I'm currently working at London Marathon Events, which is slightly different to the major events world, where you have staff that are coming in for a short period of time. Now it's looking at the staff that you currently have and volunteers that you work with, and how do you change the culture for maybe what they did 30 years ago, 20 years ago to now.
Thank you, Diane. And Steve?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Davis. I'm the Operations Director here at Emirates Old Trafford. So welcome to this wonderful venue and hope you're having a great day. I've been here sort of coming up to 3 years now, working here, so in the sports world. But in that world of trying to attract staff, keep staff, and over a seasonal piece, I was at Merlin Entertainments for about 15 years as well. So very much trying to keep a permanent base of staff and offer them unique things as well as a casual base as well over a seasonal period. So quite a bit of experience there.
Okay, so thank you, Steve. And Ronan?
I'm Ronald Moore from UTrack. It's an online workforce management platform tailored around managing occasional part-time casual staff in the events industry. UTrack's been running for about 10 years. Prior to that, I was responsible for all the labour management in the stage building and rigging parts of festivals such as Oxygen or any of the stadium events that were happening within Ireland. So I have like 15 years experience of being a scheduler and trying to build a workforce, as well as 10 years experience of running the platform to assist other people in doing so.
Thank you very much, Ronan, and thank you all for introducing yourself. Just briefly on myself, off to work, been operating for 23 years. We do staffing and recruitments to the hospitality and events industry, so obviously hugely important to me in terms of this. First question, which area is of event management, or in terms of in your own operations, is suffering the most in terms of I suppose, attracting and retaining teams?
Should I go first? I think the one area is kind of your skilled. So looking at the previous events worked on, the stewards, maybe those that need more skills or training to deliver those roles, was kind of the hardest to attract. Again, it's how do you then make sure that you're getting qualified candidates to come in and come into these roles that are short term. That's probably the area that I found the biggest challenge.
I think for us, chefing's been an interesting point, really, as well as the stewarding world. But we've been really lucky, I think, with our stewarding security. We work with G4S and FGH who are here today, and we ask for really big numbers sometimes, and actually we get those numbers 99% of the time. I think probably what I have seen though is that you're getting a fresh load of stewards who are maybe new to the industry. I think certainly what COVID did was send people into different industries. The amount of people that worked then became Amazon drivers or whatever that was. So then you're getting this fresh load. So that skill piece is probably just needs resetting. But chefing for us has been a struggle. You can see the event, the size of our place. We have 28 kitchens here. So when we're running fully, we require a lot of chefs. And most of our chefs now are agency chefs. So we pay quite a bit more for them to come. To convert them from being an agency and say, do you want to come and work here full time for us, is a real struggle. I think they're finding actually that flexibility and that pay rate is more attractive to stay on the books of an agency.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. And Roland, in terms of yourself and I guess also your clients?
Yeah, we found like within our clients, it's the throughput staff, the occasional staff, that the pipeline broke. We always had like in all of our clients with our stewarding and particularly our hospitality, there was always kind of a throughput of people in their early 20s who would work through in different industries, and about 10% of them would maybe stick on and do a career. But that whole pipeline broke down during COVID. So the input of the new staff became really hard, and trying to ramp back up again. It was how you go about having methodologies for getting staff back into the system, looking for that deep, because we all work within the events industry, you need an elastic pool. And you need to have that depth of pool that you can reach into. And that pool kind of dried up during COVID, and it's been really hard to rebuild for a lot of our clients.
Yeah. No, sure. And I know at the previous talks, there was Emma in terms of future of live events, and she was talking about lack of experience in jacket fillers, as she called them. So in terms of bringing that experience into the industry and retaining it, I realise you've only been at London Marathon for a short time in terms of Dan, but in terms of your experience, what have your organisations been doing or yourself been doing to do so? To do so to attract and retain that experienced person?
I think so if I talk, although I have been at London Marathon for a very short time, I think what they have done is built, a legacy. So they work with existing partners that they have since the beginning of London Marathon. Similarly, volunteers as well, which is fantastic, and they have a different model and they work with groups. But I think what they did 30 years ago and the compensations that they got need to change. But the people are still the same. And so if you try to change something, whether it's a guaranteed entry into the London Marathon, which is fantastic, they might have used to get 10, and we've now reduced it to 5, or you bring us an X number of people, and we will then, to keep it kind of fair across the board. So it's taking that, and you're changing what they kind of got, and how do you change the culture of those individuals to make sure that they still are retained because they are the experts in what they're doing, yet kind of moving into kind of a new way of thinking. So I think that's kind of one of the challenges that I'll have going into this role, is how do you retain them, but changing what they're used to and what their norm is, I suppose.
Sure. And Steve, as you mentioned in terms of chefs, I mean, historically, chef hours, not the greatest. And again, it's Craig from Bournemouth Sevens, he was talking about the sort of macho mentality in 18-hour days, and I think we're all aware that people are not willing to do that at the moment. So in terms of yourselves, how have you been able to change things?
I think we've become a lot more flexible, and I think we need to do that. I think most industries and businesses have, in terms of that work from home piece when you can. I think for anyone involved in the operations, obviously that's not possible. So what we found interesting, a lot of people have, in the chefing world in particular, saying like, well, I'm happy to do a morning, I'm happy to do an evening, but don't put me on a rota, I don't want to do any of that. And I think previously we would have said, well, that doesn't work for us, this is how we operate. But it's just a change of mentality to say, look, you have to flex with whatever the individual wants. And that runs across the board. I think for us here, what works really well is a real focus on, well, what's the benefit of working at Emirates Old Trafford versus actually just permanently, as opposed to just popping in now and again. How can we engage with them? So we do an annual engagement calendar that we send out to everybody that says, look, this is what's going to happen through the year, and you'll be part of that. And those perks can range from, a staff Christmas party. It can range from an ice cream van coming up and you get free ice creams for the day. It can range from, we've got a World Cup event in the next few weeks showing that, and there'll be pizzas and party for the staff. But actually saying, look, if you do come and work for us on a permanent basis, we might not always be able to match what you're going to get in your bank, but you're going to feel part of a family and you're going to feel at home, and these are the other things that we're willing to do for you free of charge. And look, we're playing around with that at the moment, but it seems to be having some positive effect.
Sure. So it's a big culture piece in terms of making people feel part of the family is what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in terms of running, in terms of tag, how is that helping in terms of doing that?
Well, I think the important bit really is it's kind of what Steve is saying as well. It's about engagement. It's about, like, you're almost having to sell your event to the staff. I mean, previously you used to be able to just kind of round up 100 people to go and load your trucks. You used to be able to reach out. The last thing that you would be thinking about is putting the boots on the ground, because they were always there. They were always going to be findable. Well, now we're finding that people are reaching out earlier, through platforms like ourselves and other ones, and probably through yourselves, but they're reaching out to the staff to tell them what's coming. the staff want to be engaged with. The new generation that's coming through, they want to be able to schedule it around the rest of the things that they're going to be doing. So being able to turn around and say, we need you on Friday isn't really washing with them anymore. You need to kind of pre-book, you need to reach out and being able to tailor the message so that you can reach out to the right people for the right location. So is that, they're not being bombarded with messages for work, they're being only tailored messaging that's relevant to them. And then they can come back and let you know, because realistically, we're in an employee's market at the moment. They're controlling the narrative. So if you're not selling your event to them, they're buying it from someone else. They're going to go somewhere else to get the work where they are engaged with, where they are being felt like they're being looked after, where they feel like that their view of what they want to do in their personal time is actually valued by the employer. Because if you're presuming upon them or waiting to the last minute to hire them, then you're causing the problem of the staff shortage as much as anything else.
One thing we're looking at for next year, particularly around our stewarding and security pieces, is actually what you normally do is you sort of get to the end of a cricket season and you say, right, off you go. We'll have a few of you for the events we've got over the year, but everybody else off you go, and then we'll see you back in April time. What we're looking at now is in that January to April period, can we put some events on that just brings these people back? Now, actually, there's a cost to that to us, and to say, well, we're going to bring 800 stewards in, and we're going to just engage you into the business. So we're going to update you on what's happening with the hotel. We'll update you on what's happening with the business. We'll give you a few of our key priorities for the year. To a casual member of staff that may only work here 5 times a year, but the idea is that they become somebody who works more than 5 times a year and they're engaged with us. The knock-on effect of that, the benefit of that, hopefully, is that positive effect to the guest as well. So that when that guest comes through our gates and they scan the ticket, they're not just talking to a person in a jacket, they're talking to somebody that has some understanding about the hotel, understands what the menu's like in the new hotel. They understand all of this, and that interaction therefore will be much better. So yes, I think it will hopefully retain them and engage them much better. But the final effect of it is that the end user, our guest, gets a better experience as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. And Diane, I guess communication with your huge team in terms of London Marathon. I realise it's not just the one event in terms of London Marathon events, but how do you keep in communication with them?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. I think if I touch on the volunteers, group leaders, although they are volunteers, they're almost like an extension of our staff, because they kind of take on an area. And I don't think that they have in the past brought them all together to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing what we're supposed to. So when you give them little tidbits of information, you say, well, we're reducing this, or we're now asking you to do this, they're confused and they said, I don't understand why. And so what we are looking at doing is going into next year is bringing them all together. So doing similar thing, bringing them all to engaging with them, explaining how the London Marathon events are changing and growing and evolving, and how we want them to be a part of their journey. A lot of them are older, and which is fantastic, but we need their legacy. And I don't want them to feel that they're being pushed out, because I think some of them do feel that way, which is not the case. But you just need to bring them in and actually have that face-to-face conversation and communicate to them. It is so critical, I think, to communicate updates and just the engagement events. Similarly with the Commonwealth Games, I think, again, working from home was a challenge, but it was bringing the staff together and kind of getting them excited to be like, oh my goodness, I'm working so hard because I'm putting on this event, and get them excited about that. So really just having those kind of all staff briefings to update, educate, etc. is key.
Great stuff. And in terms of the communication, we touched on a couple of bits, but what do we think in terms of team members? What are they looking for? I mean, in terms of employees, both in terms of retaining them and attracting them, what are they looking for in your experience?
I mean, I think it's a changing world, and I don't know if you guys agree, but it's the flexibility, the working from home. I know in the Com Games, there was doing some of the recruitment, they would take another job that allowed them to work from home a day a week or 2 days a week. We were set in the office 5 days a week, which I think we needed to deliver the games, whereas London Marathon events, we do have a hybrid working. So it's maybe now the engagement element, how do we change that when you don't have everybody in the office? So I think that is one thing to be mindful, is the kind of flexible working.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I was sort of saying the other day that a few years back I got approached by I got one of those random LinkedIn messages, are you interested in this job? And it was a famous food delivery company. Delivery, I'll say. It was Deliveroo said, are you interested in this job? Operations director. And at no point did they talk about the job, and at no point did they talk about the role. They talked purely about their office. That's all they talked about in this approach to me was, we've got a basketball court in the office, and we've got this, and we've got that. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like it. And I think the world has definitely changed, that people expect that. And interestingly, I was listening to Simon Sinek talk about something on a podcast the other day, and he was saying that certainly a younger generation are seeing all of this kind of stuff on social media, and they're seeing somebody check in and they're getting their free apple in the morning, they're going to their yoga session in the mid-afternoon, and what they have never see is actually people working. They're just seeing all the good stuff around it, and it's leading to this turnover of employees at a younger age to say, well, this is not what I'm seeing on social media, and this is not what I'm getting. So although I think that's an expectation, there's a fine line to say, well, what's the reality? And my view is, you've just got to get them to love the brand in whatever way you can do that, or whatever the business is. You've got to get them to love that. So you've got to do a bit of that stuff, I think. I don't think you can do too much of it. The best I've ever seen when I was at Alton Towers was my induction was, they talked about the history of Alton Towers. Within 2 weeks, I just fell in love with, I knew nothing about Alton Towers before I went. I just fell in love with the history of Alton Towers, where it came from, the people involved in it. And that brand training I got, which I've never had since, was just amazing. And what you found was this, Alton, we'd have 3,000 casual seasonal employees. And they came back every year without fail. They just fell in love with that brand. And I think if you can do that, you're then forming a relationship with the person. That business to person relationship is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brendan?
Yeah, I think also that what you've got to do, it's important that we also recognise that the way in communications are going now are very personalised. Excuse me. Because of the fact that we're reaching out to people in their device, in their phone, and as you're saying, they're seeing on social media the way people are engaging with stuff. So the messaging that we're sending out in terms of the request for work, when we're scheduling people, when we're even reaching out to the occasional, it needs to come across as if it's tailored for them, as opposed to being a generic message that I'm just hitting everybody in my database, come back if you want work. It's much better if you're recording the information about your pool of staff. You have everybody here who's running events has deep pools of staff that they reach into. The more information you have about them, the more tailored the information goes out when you're looking for them. You know that this guy has worked this job before, he's worked in that job before, what skills he brings to the table, what attributes. So you can tailor the messaging that you need him on Friday morning at 9 o'clock and you need someone else at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. So then they feel that they're engaged, that they're being asked directly by you, rather than just being, oh, well, I'm one of 6,000, I might turn up. Do you know what I mean? It's about realising that it's inside their mobile, it's in their personal world. You're reaching into their personal world and asking them to come join you in yours. And the more tailored the messaging is, the more engagement you'll get back from them. You know what I mean?
I think that's brilliant. I mean, I've never really thought of it like that, and I probably should. We've got a live example of an individual who's worked for us for years, is now not doing the events that they have always done. So without going into loads of detail, when I spoke to him and said, why are you not signing up to this? He's like, because you didn't ask me personally. You just sent a message out to everyone because we've brought in this new messaging system that just, to save time, blanket just sends out a message to everyone. Yeah. But that's a really good point, actually. He feels offended by that and he's saying, well, you've not asked me personally, and where's historically had. So I think there's a lesson for us in that, actually.
Yeah, no, definitely. Going to a recent, it was a summit in terms of purely recruiters. And one of the big things, and you mentioned in terms of people needing to love the brand, was ESG is for people, so environmental, social, and governance in companies is hugely important, supposedly, to applicants. I mean, what do you do? I mean, in terms of London Marathon, is it a clear message that you're getting across when you're looking to attract people? Do you feel that if we... Let's start on social, for example. Equality and inclusivity and diversity, is that something that is key to London Marathon, and how do you address it?
I think it's definitely the direction that they'd like to go in. I think that is why we're looking at, the demographics that you have and who do you have volunteering. But how do we also make that more representative of the surrounding areas? And at the moment, I don't think that they're there yet, but we would like to get into that direction. So it is looking at how do we partner with our community outreach programs to then, attract the right kind of casual workers or volunteers to then come and support us at all our events. And I think it is making them feel part of that community, not just for the London Marathon, but how do we get them in to the London Marathon and then the 5 other events that we do have throughout the year, and kind of showing our appreciation. But I think that is the direction that they like to go. Are they there yet? No.
Yeah, we're not there. We're not there at all. It's quite a unique place to work this, because you're either a professional sports person, or you're involved in that world. You're in the community and you're doing our foundation stuff. So we're out across the whole of Lancashire, 286 affiliated clubs, and you're out doing that. We never see those people, and they're out doing these little cricket sessions in communities. Or you're based here and you're an operator or an administrator. I think these guys are really engaged, the cricket world, because they've got a really clear objective, and they're professional sports people. The foundation people know exactly what they're doing, and they're in it for the community, and they've got really clear objectives. When you come and work here, I don't think we link either of those very well. So essentially, it can feel at times, I think, for people like, I'm just doing a job here, and actually the benefit of you doing that job will help those professionals, or it will help those kids in the community. So we've got a lot of work to do on that, I think.
Sure. Brandon?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, it's more about providing the services for the measurement. You know what I mean? So that you're actually aware of the demographics. I mean, we do quite a bit of work with the Equality Tribunal in Northern Ireland, for example, to ensure that there is even distribution of the workforces. So it's about, again, we'll hark back to it, it's about data management, and about knowing your staff and knowing all about them, and being able to ensure that you recognise what community they're from when you're reaching out to them. So the more information, the more attributes, the more qualities you can bring together about your knowledge of your staff and retain in whatever your scheduling processes are, that allows you to actually measure whether you're actually having inclusivity, and also reach out to them in the context of it, as well as if you wish to reach out to them as a community member. One of the things that came up recently, for example, in the previous talk, people were talking about hyperlocal. I mean, how do you go about making sure that the person that you're hiring is a local to the event? So you want to know where they're from. You want to know, are they part of the community? You've got their postcode, you've got their GPS, you know exactly who's, so you can reach out to the people in bands from a location. You can go, well, we're first going to fill it with people who are 100 meters from the venue, and then we'll roll out the requests as the numbers fill up. You can tailor it so you can determine, we want everybody from the Old Trafford region first to come in and steward, and then we'll reach out to the broader Manchester, then we'll reach out to the broader Lancashire until your call is filled. But you can do that if you centralise the information that you know about your staff.
I actually couldn't agree more. Data is everything. I think that's kind of drives how you recruit or what you do. So yes, I completely agree.
Excellent. Do you use data, Steve, at the moment, in terms of?
Not in this world. In the foundation world, absolutely. You know, when we're recruiting a cricket coach to go and work in Blackburn, we really look at where we're pulling that from. So in that foundation world, absolutely. I think in this world, not necessarily. No.
And we talked in terms of diversity. I know we spoke before. Obviously, cricket world, Yorkshire especially, has had issues, shall we say, in terms of it, and it must be very key in terms of what you do here now. And is it being addressed, and how is it being addressed?
Yeah, great topic. Thank you. So yeah, look, in the cricket world, this is a huge topic, and something that we were actively working on before I started, so beyond 3 years ago. We do a lot of good work. I think there's a fear about talking about the good work we do, and how that gets picked up and how people respond to that. So although we're doing lots of stuff, you do get slightly concerned about how much you should shout about, because what you don't want to, I think what we don't want to feel like is we're bragging about all the good stuff we're doing, because that should be normal. But we have a head of inclusion and diversity who starts in a couple of weeks, and I think that will take us on to another level as well. Because we are a governing body as the ECB, we have certain regulations that we have to hit. And again, I'm proud to say that we were hitting those 3 years ago, so we're well above that. But it's one of those things that's right at the forefront of our minds, yeah.
Excellent. And you worked at Commonwealth Games, I believe, whereas you had great success there, I believe, in terms of integration and diversity in terms of your workforce. Were there specific things you did to enable that?
Yeah, I think that it was kind of on the forefront of everything we did at Birmingham 2022. You know, it was kind of what we did when we went out to recruit the volunteers. We made sure we had targets. We then tracked those throughout, if we talk about volunteers, throughout the full journey from application stage. And then you could see then from interview stage to offer stage where maybe some of the drops were, and you were able to kind of go in and analyze and say, well, why did we see that drop from invite to interview to not attended? Why did that demographic maybe not turn up to the interview? And you're able to maybe then hold back and say, well, let's just invite the next tranche of people from this. So you're able to kind of look at your data and process accordingly. But yeah, we did, you know, reach kind of targets that we had hit. And, you know, I think we were really representative of the West Midlands, the local surrounding areas. And that kind of also, you know, for the events world, you bring people from the local. It's not just here in my, you know, work in Baku or in Turkmenistan. You have local people that are working with you. It's then how do you then train them, engage them, and upskill them to think, oh, actually, yes, they're going to go on. And I have had people, surprisingly, from, you know, Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, that have come on to work on other events. And that's kind of just the power of the events industry and what maybe these short-term major events can do. And then how do they filter into maybe the more permanent long-term roles? But yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And we've obviously discussed in terms of individual businesses. In terms of an industry as a whole, one thing we haven't discussed, pay, and obviously in terms of attracting the right teams. I mean, you mentioned people moving to go and work in Amazon jobs and whatever else, and you know, I know that low-level chefs were basically going to earn more as an Amazon drivers than they were necessarily even though they're working hard hours in terms of chefs. Has it been addressed, or has it been addressed, or is it something as an industry we need to be doing more of, or increasing pay and looking at it in terms of parity across other industries?
We have done some work, and we need to do more, I think, is a simple answer. I absolutely, I think this this period that everyone went through, where actually everyone was struggling to bring in staff members, team members, it just drove for the companies that could afford it, they were just paying more. We've got a natural competitor, if you like, up the road there, Man United, who will pay all of their staff more than what we're paying them. So we can't compete sometimes on that level, which just goes back to that first question about engaging. We have to compete on a slightly different level, but equally there is a point where we have to say, well, let's look at, you know, our housekeeping team who clean our hotel bedrooms, rather than them working for an agency. If we wanted to bring their house, what would we have to pay? And if that disparity is 50p a pound, and we can make that work, we are making that work. So we have absolutely looked at that, and we'll continue to do so. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I assume through your system you must have stats in terms of how pay has been increasing or not increasing over the last few years.
Yeah, we have seen quite a bit, like what you call it, that there is, it got very static in the pre-COVID period, but there has been an uplift in the post-COVID, particularly around the stewarding and the hospitality sector. And again, I think it's that bit of they're competing with the agencies. So we can see, particularly within the hospitality sector, companies that were direct hiring everybody pre-COVID are now going at 2/3 or a third to 2/3 coming in agency staff. That's then pushing up their cost, because obviously they're paying the agency. So they're increasing their staff rates then to try and bring back down the balance, because, you know, you want your agency to be, you know, 10 to 15%. You want to fill them in at the end. So we did notice that, like, and we've spoken to a number of our companies about that. And again, the reach out part becomes important, the transparency about rates. Some of our companies, for example, started changing their workflows so that where previously they would only display rates inside the app after they were booked, they actually started displaying rates as part of the advertising of the work. Do you know what I mean? And started being flexible about rates even on a per job basis. So as you're almost, again, selling the shift internally to your team, particularly around the occasional staff. So we've seen quite a bit of flexibility in pay rates on a per event basis.
And I guess obviously volunteers is not a pay aspect, but I guess in terms of a package and how you look after them, has that changed?
I don't think it has changed. I think you still need to recognize and, you know, give them little tokens. I think, yeah, I've not seen a shift in kind of what happens in the volunteer realm, but I think from a paid staff perspective, it is also what else does the company offer, not just pay. So what other learning and development or training courses will they put you on, or what will they invest in you? What is the company investing in you as an individual to then hopefully further your career in some way, shape or form, I think is also really important.
Thank you. I guess it's a good thing to finish off. So in terms of retaining and attracting talent, if you had to say 3 things that they're most looking for, what would they be? And I'll pass it around.
I don't know if it's what they're most looking for, but what I think is part of a community, part of a tribe, feeling part of something.
Yeah, I agree. I think it differs on role. I think some people are purely looking for that. What is the rate of pay, because that's the line of work I work in. But on the whole, I think it's what is that brand? What is that company going to give me beyond what goes into my bank?
Yeah, I think as to reflect what's been said earlier, ongoing engagement, clear, concise information, being brought in and being valued, I think is important. Not taken for granted, no matter whether they're pushing a box or they're hanging your lights or whether they're working as a chef. Everybody equally wants to be treated as if they're a value part of the process.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, panel.